Hello everybody and welcome to another Let's Chat / channel update episode video thing. To be honest, I've actually tried to record this particular thing a couple of times. It just hasn't come out the way I want. So if you're listening to this, that means it came out the way I want, or I'm just happy enough with it to put it up there. I've been wanting to put a Let's Chat up for a while, but things have just been kind of hectic, and to be honest, you guys all deserve a channel update as it is, since things have been kind of crazy on my end, and therefore kind of been, I don't want to say inconsistent as far as any video uploads go, because I've still been maintaining 2 a day, but as far as any sort of regularity with any of the series, outside of Project Zomboid, there hasn't been, and I think you guys deserve at least an explanation if you care to hear one. And this will also probably be like a mixture of a Let's Chat, so this will probably be a bit longer than usual, but I will do the channel update first if that's what you're here for. That way you guys can just bounce after it's done. So, the channel is, like I said, kind of like in a flux. I don't want to say in a flux, it's wrong, but I had a schedule that I was very, very tightly sticking to for a little while that I actually enjoyed having. But that has kind of come to a screeching halt, and for the first time in a very, very long time, I have too much on my plate. I have, you know, Project Zomboid, Papers, Please, Crusader Kings 2, Payday 2, I do my Spelunky, I have my Rogue Legacy, I'm probably missing something. So needless to say, as you can tell, as well as working on the next retrospective with Dean, I just have so much going on. So I've kind of gone scattered, and I'm gonna try and kind of rein things in, but things are gonna be a little bit, I don't want to say all over the place, but all over the place for the next few days. Since Payday 2 came out, I've been doing collaborations for that. We've had codes for the game for a long time now because the developers at Overkill are badass and hooked us up. So we're going to be doing a series on that. So a lot of my nights for the next little while are going to be taken up with recording Payday episodes until we have a nice backlog of them. As far as Crusader Kings goes, the main series that I have is kind of going on a small halt because I got pulled into the Succession game. That's another collaboration where every YouTuber plays as a ruler, and when they die, they hand it off to the next person in the Succession game that take over as their child and try to do as best as possible. It went Arumba, then Northern Lion, then Alpaca Patrol, then Aquila Teen, and now it's going to me. I have the save file. My first episode should be going up on the 16th, and you should see one every day until my turn is over. So that's kind of why I put a halt on Crusader Kings 2. It would mean if I didn't, it would mean I'm recording 2 separate Crusader Kings 2 series going at once, and those take an incredible amount of time to record, edit, render, and then upload. They're big files, and they tend to kind of tax my computer to render, and then on top of it, uploading it to YouTube takes a solid amount of time. So I have put the Crusader Kings 2 on hold as far as that's concerned. And as far as Spelunky and Rogue Legacy, what was supposed to happen, I was supposed to beat Rogue Legacy and then move to Spelunky. That didn't end up happening. I don't know if I'm going to go back and beat Rogue Legacy, to be honest with you. The views are not the best. If I take a look right now, which I actually have my YouTube up, we'll run back to the latest one, which has 447 views, and that went up 2 weeks ago. And we take a look at my Spelunky episodes, and the first one did a little over 1,000, and the rest are hitting about a little bit more than 500. So they're slightly better off than Rogue Legacy, and I have more fun with it. So I for the foreseeable future, at least for a little while, there'll probably be more Spelunky than Rogue Legacy. Who knows? Rogue Legacy could come back. I don't know. Then there's Papers, Please, of which I've really wanted to do a playthrough since I've played the demo of the game, and there was a very big contingent of people in my kind of subscriber base that loved Cart Life, and Papers, Please has that incredibly similar feel. So I'm going to be playing through that one way or another, just because it's something I love. It's a game about the human condition, and it tells a different story basically to anybody who plays it, and watching it can be really entertaining as well. And I know those people are really liking it, so that's going to stick. Project Zomboid won't be going anywhere, obviously. That's going to stick here. And I also want to do some other stuff. I got to do a couple indie snapshots. Guacamelee is one I definitely need to get done. I have a couple that indie developers have been kind of throwing at me lately. I have a lot kind of sitting in my mailbox that I need to look at. And I've definitely been neglecting the indie snapshots lately, and I don't want that to be the case. But I just have so much going on as far as YouTube stuff, and so much of my time is I wish I had more time in the day to do it that I just don't. So for a little while, you're going to see a lot of Payday 2 content. You will be seeing a lot of Payday 2 content for a long time. But for the next short few days, I'm going to be dedicating a hell of a lot of time to just recording kind of episodes in bulk to have that sitting in the back. And that's going to end up, like I said, taking up a bit of my time for a little bit. Zomboid Papers, Please won't be going anywhere. Spelunky probably won't be going anywhere anytime soon. And that's a bit about it for my episodes. You will see the return of Crusader Kings 2 on the 16th. You will see, more stuff. I need to look at Europa Universalis 4. I have ideas what I want to do with that. And you will see all kinds of stuff, coming up in the future. I need more time in the day, and that brings me to the other thing. The reason that I'd have all the time in the world to do this, but my real job has been sucking up a bunch of my time. We are incredibly understaffed, and I'm kind of their plaything right now. Since I'm one of the head servers there, they tend to put me into like all the shifts that they need covered. So I've been working a ton. And what that means for me is that when I'm working a ton, I see my girlfriend less and less. So when I get home, I need to spend time with her because I don't see her that much, and I want to spend time with her as best I can. And trying to split time between her and YouTube is very difficult. And she, lucky for me, she mostly understands how much YouTube means to me. And that's going to be kind of the subject of the talking time. So as far as the channel update goes, this is the end of the channel update. That's only about 7 minutes long. So thank you for sticking around. If you want to stick around for talking time, we're going to dive right into it. I don't know what game I'm going to be having in the background. Could be some Payday, could be anything, really. It really could be anything. But we're going to get into it. And I've been really thinking a lot, pretty much, about my current situation in life, and just the general scheme of things as far as YouTube is concerned, and work is concerned, and my life is concerned. And a lot of people have asked, when I have time to stream, I stream when I can. People have been asking, a lot, Matt, what got you into YouTube? What have you been getting into YouTube? And I've given, I literally get that question at least once or twice every time I stream, sometimes more through emails. And the answer is mostly the same, right? It's always, I fell in love with esports, and, I wanted to do what the casters were doing, and I wanted to get into that scene. That is the story I always give, and that's not a lie. It's actually very truthful. But there's a whole part of that from before I made that decision that actually factors into why I go into YouTube. And I want to talk about that and why YouTube means so much to me and what YouTube in general has done for me before I even started recording, before I even made my very first video. So for some of you may know, some of you probably don't. Actually, most of you, almost all of you probably don't. I grew up loving video games. Since I was 4 years old, I've been playing the NES, and I've been playing pretty much video games, and it was an obsession of mine. Very, very, very passionate about video games since I was young. But people didn't seem to understand why I liked them so much. Family and family friends and whatnot. They understood that I liked it. They, little man on the TV, entertained me. I liked it a lot, but there was more to it than that. I would do everything in my power to be able to play in my free time. I used to have to ask, I'm sure a lot of you as kids did, Mom, can I go play my Nintendo? At like 7 or 8 years old, I want to go play Nintendo, can I do it? And she would, for one reason or another, say no, because, maybe I needed to do my homework, I needed to clean my room. But I was a smart child, or at least I thought I was, and I would take that answer, and then I'd go to my dad. Be like, Dad, Mom said I can't play video games. Is it okay if I play video games? And that's kind of a dick thing to do, but you're 10 and 9 or 8 or whatever, and you want to play video games, and, my dad, wanting to be the man of the house, would say, of course you can go play video games, that as long as you do your stuff after. And I would go and play, and then my mom would see me playing, and she'd be like, what are you doing? I told you couldn't play video games. I was like, well, Dad told me I could go play video games. And then they would get into a fight, and I would have to stop one way or another, but I got precious minutes in with the video game, right? Something that I loved. And if there's one thing my mom and my father really did for me when I was growing up is, they really, really supported me in everything I did. And even though I was very heavily addicted to video games, they still didn't stop me. They didn't see it as unhealthy like a lot of other people did. And maybe it's because they got to, I was the oldest child. I was still, very much I was I was the experiment child. They weren't quite sure how to, maybe raise a kid or something, but it kept me home. It kept me out of trouble. It allowed me to do things that it kept me out of things rather that other kids might have been getting into, later on. And that passion for video games never died. Maybe they expected it to die, but as technology got better, video games got better. No longer were you Mario jumping on a screen, but I was, Cloud Strife and Final Fantasy VII, my first real love for RPGs and stories and games. And, I would think, games can never get any better than this, but they, of course, did. And, as I grew up, I was very much the atypical nerd. I got poked fun of a lot, and I remember getting shoved in lockers, and I was a very small child. I was in high school, 9th and 10th grade, I was 4'11", 86 pounds. I finally went through a growth spurt. I grew. I'm now 5'9", thank God. But I was a late bloomer. The doctors always said I was a late bloomer. And if I, didn't hit puberty by like a certain age, they would start, put me on a steroid treatment. That's how scrawny and little I was. And because of that and my love for video games, it was weird because I think, looking back, what did I use video games for? I escaped the real world with them. School was a place I got picked on with the exception of a couple of friends. So when I got home, all I wanted to do was dive into a world where I could be a hero, or dive into a world where I could be, super powered or whatever. And it was my escape. It was my, off switch, turning off everything that happened to me. And I was very much a depressed kid. But I will always say my mom and my father were always immensely supportive. Wonderful people, gave me one of the best childhoods I ever could. And I will love them forever for it. They were phenomenal, phenomenal people. And I always knew I wanted to do something with video games growing up. Maybe make them, maybe write about them. I didn't know. But I knew that I never wanted video games outside of my life. And at high school, as high school came, the PlayStation 2 era came and gaming was getting more mainstream, but still, worth being picked on about because I loved them so much. But I met two amazing people in high school, one of them being my best friend Dave, whose wedding actually just came and went in February, last February, and I was his best man, and he's one of the best friends I could ever have. And I met another one who's one of my, my best friends, who's Scott, and, Dave and I have a connection where he loves video games as much as I do, and he's a lawyer now, and he still loves video games as much as I do. And he was one of the only people I could ever go to school to and absolutely burst at the seams talking about video games, because there wasn't anybody I could really do that with before. I could never go to school, when I was in elementary school or even my first year to a high school, where I could go and talk to somebody and just talk about video games forever and explode my passion of video games to them. That just wasn't possible. But Dave was the very first person that I could ever do that. And I started to look forward to going to school, because after school we would always hang out for about an hour before our rides came. And at least for 5 days a week I knew I could always go to school, and school became much more tolerable when he came around, because I could talk to him about everything, about my love, about whether it be Animal Crossing or Final Fantasy or whatever it was that I was playing at the time. I could absolutely just connect with him on that, and it just fed my passion for games more, and I loved it. And I could go home and play, and the age of the MMO came around where I could actually dive into this virtual world and be somebody heroic, and other people could see me be heroic. There was this one game you guys may know called The Matrix Online. It was a horrible, horrible MMO, but I fell in love with it for one reason or another. I was the largest guild. I ran the largest guild on the Merovingian side of the Alliance, and I got to talk to the Merovingian directly. He's run by a developer. He would call on me for missions and stuff. It was one of the coolest things, and I loved it, and I got to go talk to Dave about that. I got to go and be like, dude, my huge guild, of the part of the Merovingian, this, that, and the other, I could do all this stuff. And he was always there to do that. And my dad, it was so cool. My dad loved The Matrix, but he didn't really know video games all that well, outside of like Atari. So I would tell him all the stories that would happen in The Matrix Online. He loved it because he loved The Matrix and the movies and the world. So I was able to connect with him on that. And, all these things allowed me to continue being passionate for video games. And I'm going to say this one more time. My mother and my father were phenomenal, phenomenal people. Are phenomenal people. I don't want to say were. They still very much are. And I look up to them very much. And the reason I say that is because what got me into YouTube is my mother is Now very sick. Mental illness. Mental illness is a real thing, ladies and gentlemen, and my mother has quite a few things wrong. And over the years, you know, we would see it as growing up, like one or two things, but we never thought anything about it. Maybe she would go on a shopping spree one day and be incredibly depressed the next. But it was just mom to us, and nothing really came of it. But one day, about 6 years or so ago, things came to a boiling point, and my mom kind of flipped, right? Something turned in her head. A switch went off or on or whatever you want to say, and things got really bad in the house. And God bless my father, man. He is an amazing guy. He is still with my mother to this day, and sticking with her through all the things that she's gone in and out of the hospital visits, medications, treatments. And it became very difficult for all of us, my sister, my brother, and myself. My brother moved off to New York because he went to college in New York, so he was gone when kind of all this started to kick up into a lot. My sister and I had to drop out of college to take care of things at home. You know, we insisted my brother did not come back, though he did come back for a little while to help us take care of things. He ended up staying at college an extra semester because of it. I completely dropped out of college, completely. My sister did as well. She's finally going back. And things became, the person that was once our caretaker was now someone we had to take care of. And usually that doesn't happen, until they're much older and we're much older. But things had to change. And after everything my mom did for us when we were growing up, it was the least we could do for her, to be there for her, to make sure everything was going to be okay. But again, things got difficult. Bills started getting high. My father's salary could no longer support that. My mom couldn't work anymore. She was a teacher before all of that. Now she couldn't work, permanent disability. And my dad had to find a new job. And finding a new job meant finding a higher paid one no matter where it was. And he finally found one in the middle of the country that paid him an extra $30,000 on top of what he was already getting paid, which was really nice. It would definitely allow them to afford the medical bills, and he took it. He didn't have a choice, because where we live, jobs are sparse. It's New England. New England's a very difficult place to find jobs, particularly in his industry. So he took it, and things were better in some respects and more stressed in the others, because then my mom became my sister's and my responsibility more so than she was, and we had to make sure everything was going to be okay. And she became really depressed because my dad wasn't around anymore. Her rock, the one man that never left her for anything, for 28 or 29 years or whatever it is at this point. And, things became more and more difficult. And I needed an escape. And I couldn't find it because I couldn't go out anymore. I didn't have the time to go out. Not that I went out in the first place, but I didn't have the money to purchase the things that I wanted to, and I couldn't find anything. So, one day I found, my friend told me about it. My friend Dave told me about it. He had, I was getting into StarCraft 2. It was one of the games I allowed myself to purchase, and I loved StarCraft as it was. StarCraft 1, I played it for the story, but my friend discovered esports, and I knew esports existed, but I never really had gotten into it before. But he showed me some pro matches, and I friggin' loved it. And suddenly my free time was not spent playing, it was spent watching. And I watched a lot of esports, a lot of commentaries, Husky StarCraft, HD StarCraft. God, I finally found Day 9. Day 9 was one of the most amazing people to watch because he was always so incredibly happy. And I remember after watching it for a while and kind of understanding how StarCraft works, saying, I could do this. I could easily do this. This is like, it looks easy. And that's what makes a caster, that's when you know a caster is good, is when they make something so easy to understand that it looks easy. Then I dove into it, and I just casted my first pro match. I downloaded a replay, and I just casted it. I barely knew who the players were at this point. One was Damaga, one was Millennium's Dystar. Two players who you don't see too much anymore, and Damaga was the only remotely successful one. Dystar was a very defensive player at the time, and he never really got too far either. But I casted it. It was horrible. There's footage out there somewhere. Actually, if you go watch the XCOM retrospective, there's a piece of that footage there. And I did it, and I remember putting it up on YouTube and refreshing my page and waiting for views to come. And of course, they didn't really ever come. Eventually, I had like 3 or 4. And I remember putting that up there and thinking, that's really cool. I don't have to go through a process of being approved by anybody. Nobody says, whatever. I didn't have to go through like a network or anything. I just put my videos out there if I really wanted to, and I did. And that process alone was really intriguing to me, and I really, really liked it. I did a lot of, studying on StarCraft. I was very much a Bronze League player, but I cast it anyway. And eventually I started getting views. And by views, I mean like 10 to 20 at most. And and I saw a couple subscribers. I remember hitting my first 10. I remember hitting my first 20, which was, a couple years ago now. And I loved it. It was weird. It was this weird addicting feeling. Not only did I love casting because it was such an exciting thing for me, but I loved putting the videos up there, and I loved getting, seeing people view it. And then I remember getting my very first comments. A couple of them were very positive. They just liked my style, even though I was very boring if you go listen to it now. But there's people being nice and probably don't really know much about the scene. And then there were the people who knew, about the scene, and they saw my stuff because I had either posted it on forums and I wanted people to see it. And God, they were critical. I very quickly realized they knew very, very little to nothing about esports. And for the next year, I dedicated my life to playing StarCraft and casting StarCraft to the point where I went from bronze to high diamond very, very quickly. Well, not quickly, but within a year. But I devoted all of my free time, and I mean all of my free time, to StarCraft 2. And when I went from like 5 to 10 subscribers in that year to about 236, I think is where I eventually stalled out. And, the feedback was mostly good at that point because I had a very passing knowledge of how the game worked. I may not have been able to play it that well, but I understood it. And I got to cast tournaments. Like, that was really cool. I got picked up by Absolute Legends at one point to be their StarCraft caster. Unfortunately, their StarCraft team wasn't very good, and they didn't last very long. I casted for Convergence Gaming. Before Puck was on Team Root, if you follow StarCraft at all, Root Puck was on... or Sasquatch or anybody else was on Root. They were on Convergence, a very upstart team who had a lot of promise. Unfortunately, they were run by a bunch of teenagers. They were like 18, 19 years old. They had no idea how to run a team, nor how to manage any money, and that fell apart as well. But it hooked me up with Puck and a couple of other people, particularly a StarCraft caster called Gwincraft. And from meeting him, I got to cast a few live tournaments with like other players like QXC and Demaga and a few other pretty well-known pro players. And it was one of the coolest feelings in the world to be able to do that, to go from a nothing to still pretty much a nobody, but a nobody who's doing something. And I remember making my first like $5 casting a live tournament, and I loved it. Again, that feeling, that rush, it allowed me to escape real life. And I think that's what I liked about it all. I could take care of my mom and do all the stuff in real life that I needed to do in work, and I could come home and be the person I wanted to be. YouTube allowed me to be the person in high school that I was no longer able to be because of how things at home were. I was able to basically burst with the seams with passion and excitement for games that I hadn't been able to do in probably a couple of years because of things at home had gone. And that's what... that's why I started falling in love with YouTube. And I remember stalling out about 230 subscribers, and I decided one day, why not take this passion for esports and apply it to other things that I'm passionate for, like other games. And I had come across Project Zomboid a little bit before I had made that decision, and I decided that I was going to do a video talking about the update that was coming to the game, where it introduced like melee knives and some other stuff. Like banging on the windows, that was something that wasn't able even in the game at that point, and that was new. So I did, and IndieGames.com actually picked up that video and put it on their website. And most of my videos are getting maybe 50 views at that point, depending on the series, whether it was casting pro games or playing personal StarCraft. But that got picked up, and I got thousands of views very, very, very quickly. And I saw an influx of subscribers, and most of the people were like, "We want to see you play this game. Can you please play this game? We want to see you play this game." And it was my first time debating and actually doing a Let's Play. And I did. I decided to go with it because I knew I loved it, and that's the birth of the Project Zomboid situation. And I feel very lucky that even happened, because through all of that, all of you showed up, or most of you showed up. I was able to get close to the developers. They asked me to do an interview with them, and I did. I talk to them all the time via Twitter or Skype if they need to. I'm basically the Zomboid guy, right? And through that, through Project Zomboid, I was able to continue my passion for video games. And the way I looked at it, and the way I always went about it when I started doing this channel stuff, is that I don't want to be a guy who sits back and says, people like me because I'm funny, or I scream at horror games, or whatever. I want people to come to my channel because it feels like they're sitting down, hanging out with a friend, and able to express their passion for games just as much as I am. And, over time, things got better at home. My dad got to come back. He still lives out in Maryland now-ish. It works out there, which is a distance from where we live. Like a few states out, but a short flight. And things are still stressed, but I moved out. I got engaged. But the one thing that stayed constant through all of this is YouTube. Because once I had a taste and that feel of being able to hang out with friends and talk about games and produce content and find out that people are actually entertained. I make people's days better with simple videos. I could never give that up. No matter what, I could, people could hold a gun to my head and say, please stop making videos. I don't think I could do it. YouTube has become such an integral part of my life, and I am beyond anywhere I ever expected to be. And being able to meet with big YouTubers like Northern Lion, like meet him in person and hang out with him and Rockley Smile and J Smith OTI at PAX East was one of the coolest experiences of my life, and further cemented the fact that this is what I want to do. I have never in my life wanted something as bad as I want this. I have always, like I said back when I started talking, that I definitely wanted to do something with video games, whether it was make them or write about them. But I finally, because of all of you supporting me and making me realize that this is something I love, I finally found exactly what it is I want. I want to be able to cover video games. I want to be able to make retrospectives. I want to be able to, help developers show off their games or play games for your entertainment. I want to do YouTube. And I would never have found that out if it wasn't for a few big strokes of luck and you guys. So, in a way, I have to say thank you to all of you for almost making me realize my life passion was to do what I've always loved in the first place, and that something can come of it. And as long as I continue to grow, and as long as that opportunity is there for me to make this something more, as long as that's there, I won't stop. I will always be doing this, and I will always be entertaining whoever watches my videos, because that is something I have fallen in love with. And without that, I don't know where I would be. I don't know what my life would be without YouTube anymore. I think about it, and I think about my life before YouTube, and I don't know how I did it. And this initially allowed me to get my mind off difficult life situations. Now, I've had a taste of it. Now, this is what I want, and I won't accept anything less. And I can't wait for the day that I'm able to quit my waitering job to do this full time. And I do hope that day comes. And I hope you're all there when it happens, because I have so many things planned in my mind, so many exciting series that I want to do that aren't Let's Plays, like creative endeavors, like the retrospectives and Killed in Actions, and bringing back Ready Set Game. If I had the time to do Ready Set Game again, I would bring it back in a heartbeat. So be excited, the future's bright for this channel. I'm sorry for everything that my schedule's all kind of gone off, but I feel like it's something I can control. And thank you all again for allowing me to do what I love. Until next time, folks, I'll see you all later.